matter what, we come together for the good of our constituents, and I'm proud and honored to lead the People's House of the New York State Legislature.
The health and protection of the human beings that live in our districts is our responsibility.
Senator Douglas's words for us today, I quote, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress."
If you want equity to happen, then this is where it happens.
All of us have a responsibility to the greater good.
The House will come to order.
Hello, everyone. I'm Assemblyman Santabarbara, and welcome to this edition of Assembly Update. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and my guest today, Brett Scudder, is here. I met him back in Schenectady for an event. He is a suicide attempt survivor, president and CEO of Scudder Intervention Services Foundation and the Suicide Institute. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Very pleased to have you on to talk about what is an important topic. We did meet back in Schenectady because you held an event on this issue. But I wanted to have you on the show because September's right around the corner. National Suicide Prevention Month is coming up. It is an important month, and we wanted to get your thoughts on how the community can get involved, why it's important, and maybe share some of your own personal experiences.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for being here. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, but unfortunately enough is not being done. And so to have more voice, to have more input events, it's very important for us to generalize what is happening in our communities as more people are struggling. The CDC's report just came out about the 2022 rates of suicide, and the numbers are very high. But we're still not talking about it. Only when there's a celebrity or a high-profile person that completes suicide that we hear about that. But there are so many people struggling every day with pain, with trauma, with all different types of things, and they're giving up hope because it is so hard in our society today to just live up to the standards of what we need to.
And through your various roles, you've been trying to get the community more involved, more engaged. You've been trying to educate people as well. That event in Schenectady, I recall, there was a lot of information that I took back to the office. Very good information, things that are very good to understand. People trying to find ways to help. You've been trying to engage the community. Why is that important? It's important to engage the community. Also, it's a stigma. There's a stigma around this, and you talked about that. Let's talk a little bit about that issue.
So personally for me, I'm a suicide attempt survivor. I've gone through a lot of things, still going through. I'm not someone with a lived experience. I'm someone with a living experience today. The struggle is very real. I deal with a lot of pain, suffering every day for different types of different things that's going on. Been in and out of the health and mental health systems. Even the health and mental health systems are not adequately equipped to help people who are dealing with suicidality. And this is why we need to do more community awareness, because the first response to someone who is suicidal sometimes is from within the home or the intimate relationship or the family members that they're in. So if we can get people to be more comfortable talking about suicide, then we won't have to wait until someone dies by suicide before we start realizing that this person was actually crying out for help or that this person tried to get help. And that's where I come in. Being a voice in a face that people can see and say, well, you know, there's this gentleman out here that talks about his experience with suicide, and, you know, it could be any one of us. That could be a brother, you know, relative or a loved one, and we just never know what they're going through. So my role is to normalize the conversation, breaking down the stigmas, and let people know that a lot of people who complete suicide, there were no signs that person was actually in crisis. But because they didn't have a way to talk about it or someone they could talk to about it, it only ended in the death of that person.
And, you know, as you said, sometimes there are no signs. Sometimes there are, and it's important to recognize those warning signs, especially, you know, within the house, family, friends. What are some of the things our community can do, or friends, or people in the community can do to sort of educate themselves to recognize warning signs?
Well, first you got to come out to an educational event, right?
Yeah.
An event that's educating on you about subliminal messages. There are a lot of subliminal messages of someone who is in pain that we never associate with that person being in pain or being depressed or suicidal. So to be educated, you have to come out to an event like the one we hosted where you came out, you learned a lot from that event.
Yes.
But that's how we break the stigmas. We break the stigmas through educational events that you can now take to your home and to your school, church, business place, or whatever it is, and say, hey, I learned about this, and this is something that we could do within our organization, within our home, within our church, within our school, to address this sensitive topic that so many people are afraid to talk about.
And you did mention the role of mental health professionals and what their role is in all this and what the resources are out there, what resources are available. A lot of times people don't know. So you talked about that communication piece. That's a critical component of ensuring that open communication and dialogue is there.
I think even more importantly, from my personal experiences, the systems that are here to help people are not helping people in the ways that improves their quality of life. And so we're going into these very systems, but we're coming out worse than we went in. There's no oversight for that. There's no checkup or follow-up with people to say, hey, you were here a day or two ago, how are you doing now? Is there anything else that we could do to help that we may not have thought of while you were here? Are you now struggling as a result of coming in here and not getting the care that's needed? If you think about the concept of an emergency room, the very word emergency means that there's someone in a crisis or something emergent. But you go into the emergency room and you're there for hours, no one sees you, you see all these other traumas happening around you, but you're in pain and you're struggling. Is that the right place for someone who is hurting and struggling with emotional pain or psychological challenges? No, it may not be. And so the question is, how do we change the environments that we go into because of trauma to be more sensitive to the pain that people are walking in with, so that they're not leaving worse than they went in? So it's a whole retraining process that we have to go through. And it's people like me who are living the experience, who can talk to someone like you to get you to understand the seriousness of this and how can we make those changes.
And as you said, there is at the Capitol, there is a number of pieces of legislation surrounding this issue. There is funding, but there's also the community piece of it. And I know that you're working on that, and you have been supporting survivors and families, and you're holding another event coming up, and that will be on September 10th,
World Suicide Prevention Day.
World Suicide Prevention Day. Why don't you tell us about that event, what's going to be happening there, and why it's important for people to attend? It's open to all, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we're inviting everyone to come out, to get to greet people. It's called, How Are You Wellness Week kickoff, right? We want to be able to just meet people and say, hey, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you doing? And normalize the conversation where people can talk with each other. We have really been disconnected as a society. We're more technologically connected, but we've been emotionally disconnected. So we want people to come out. There will be food, there will be refreshments, you get to meet people. There are different providers that will be talking about the services they offer. We will be there with our services as well to let people know that if you are going through something, whether you're an attempt survivor or struggling with it or lost someone, there will be resources and people there that you can connect with that will help you through this process.
And the location and the time of the event?
It's in Glenville, 2 Pinewood Drive in Glenville. It's our home base that we've set up here as a result of just seeing the need for this work. And people just, as I said, just come out. It's open to the public. You come, you're going to get good food and good food and refreshments to also feed the mind as we take care of the mind and the body.
And I know you have, we'll just give this out a few times. I know you have an email, a phone number.
Right.
Let's give that out just for people watching, just in case we do not get to all the topics. There's so much to talk about here. Your email?
It's ask at S as in Scudder, I as in Intervention, S as in Services, F as in Foundation, I as in Inc.org. So that's SISFI.org. Okay. It's 518-986-7343. So either way, you can reach out to us through those resources.
For this event or for
anything that we're doing. We have a 24/7 crisis lifeline. We do support groups, healing sessions, listening sessions. We do a lot of things that you can see from our website when you take a look.
And we talked at the Disconnected event. You made that clear that you're open 24/7, and that's great to have that resource there. Back to community involvement, the awareness piece. Schools, workplaces, local organizations. How can they all play a role in raising awareness and providing resources that's needed by the community?
Well, we need to be talking about it, right? We need to be talking about suicide as if it really is a public health crisis, not being afraid or stigmatized by the word, but recognize that there are more people who are thinking and struggling with suicidality. Why are we afraid to talk about it? And why do we wait until a life is lost before we talk about it? If I was to tell you the number of people we see who are suicidal, who we're providing services to, even children between the age of 4 to 9 years old, that's a scary thing to think about. How come we are not focusing on this as a critical issue? And I think, again, it comes back down to the stigma. If we talk about suicide, then we're prompting people to think or act on it, and that's not true. By talking about it, we get people to be more comfortable approaching someone and saying, hey, I'm having a really bad day today, I'm just not feeling well, and my mind is just not where it needs to be. And that's what we aim to do. Normalize the conversation and humanize the experiences for people to know that you're not alone in this.
And you also stress the importance of human contact. And we talked about the COVID,
Yes.
during COVID. That was very difficult to do, but it has such an impact on people's lives, and including this issue here. It's an issue that was impacted people looking for help and not able to get the normal human contact they were used to. Let's just talk a little bit about that. There was an absence and the impact, and now what we're seeing afterwards.
Yeah, thank you for that, because loneliness was a challenge before the pandemic. But then after the pandemic, when COVID shut everyone down and everyone was isolated, loneliness rose to the top of one of the 3 top mental health challenges people are going through. And we're still seeing it today because there's such a fear of people to make human contact. Not only to make the human contact, but what do you say to someone? How do you have that conversation with someone? And this is why we have the How Are You Wellness Week from September 10th to the 16th. We're inviting people to just have these conversations, whether it's in your church, your school, your business place, or whatever it is. Say that this time on this day, we're going to have a human connection with each other and ask each other, how are you? And by that conversation, we'll get to know more about each other. There are people literally working beside you. There are people in the church, in your pews. There are people on the job. We don't know how they're doing. You don't know how they're doing. And so by looking at someone, we can tell by looking at them how they're doing. It starts with a conversation. And that's what we're starting on the 10th, World Suicide Prevention Day, having that conversation as a community, inviting people to come out to just talk to each other, reconnect on a human level. And that whole week, I'll be across the state doing a number of different things, but we're promoting more in-person events to get people to reconnect on a human level.
Such an important thing, and I really commend the work that you're doing. I know that we also we got a little bit of time left. We also talked about the impact of social media. And I just want to touch on that because I think it's so important. It was a good part of the conversation we had at Schenectady. I think it's important to talk about the impact that it has had on our society.
One of the biggest threats, and I testified at a joint Senate hearing in 2019 here at the Capitol, and I said at the time that the biggest threat we faced in our society is the addiction to technology and mobile devices. And people are not paying attention to what that is. That level of addiction is causing a lot of low self-esteem, a lot of depression, a lot of insomnia, because a lot of kids, especially kids, they're not sleeping well. They're not getting enough rest because they're staying up, they're focusing on these devices. And the social media is everything they focus on. They feel like the social media is their real life. The number of likes they can get, the number of positive comments. And when they don't get that, they go into this meltdown. So that to me is one of the biggest threats we face today, is how do we look at technology and social media, help parents to know that you really need to have a better conversation with your child. Don't just give them these devices and give them unlimited access to the internet and technology, because that's some of the things that's really affecting them psychologically that you don't realize. And we've worked with a lot of families who've lost a child to bullying, right? And the term bullycide is real. Over the last 15 years, we've been working with families who've lost children to online bullying, and it's not changing. It's getting more prevalent, and that's a very scary thing for us. So parents who are listening, we can help you to have those conversations. We can show you the ways in which you can have those conversations and make them be meaningful and effective.
We've been talking with Brett Scudder. I hope that you can join us on September 10th. There'll be a lot more information, and join us here again on Assembly Update, where we'll talk more about important issues like this happening in our community and ways that you can help. Thank you for joining us.